everybody, it's me, Tesla. I'm here with another little 10 tips things because I find them interesting and they're really short and I like them. So that's what we're doing today. But this time we're going to talk about buyers and 10 things they should look for when buying a house. Like I said last time in my last video for sellers, I have a bad memory, so I'm gonna I got me some notes so I can look at, okay? And I'm gonna ask in the front end, look, if you're getting any value at all from these videos, or if you're really nice or you're just my friend, subscribe. It's super helpful. Leave comments, ask me questions. I'm here to help, okay? So 10 things to look for when buying a house. All right, so I think number one is definitely super helpful is recognize a roof in need of repair. I also decided doing these YouTube videos, I'm going to be me, meaning all of my mistakes. So this is who I am. So number one, recognize a roof in need of repair. How do you do this? Look, roof is super expensive. And if the roof doesn't look relatively new, you gotta pay attention to it. Is it caving in? If the roof is eye-catching, chances are it would end up costing you. So like, say if the roof, there's something on it that you just know doesn't look right, pay attention to that. Ask questions. The realtor should know how old the roof is. They should know how many layers. This is something a lot, you're a first-time home buyer, things that you don't think about, but if you've never understood roofs, which I didn't because I grew up in an apartment, now I own a home and I had to learn these things. But a roof can have 3 layers on there. So you need to know how many layers, because once there's 3 layers, and you need a new roof, you gotta rip everything off and start brand new. So definitely ask those questions, okay? Number 2, don't judge a room by its paint job. Now I spoke in my last video how sellers should definitely paint their rooms in neutral colors. The reason why is because buyers like to judge a house by its paint job. Don't. You got to look at what really matters, and what really matters is the structural stuff, okay? So how old appliances are, loose wires, you got to really tune out freshly painted walls as well, because look, sellers know the deal. They know if they paint their house, people think it looks pretty and everything is fine. So it goes both ways, okay? You might hate a house because the paint job sucks. Don't judge it by that. But you might love a house because the paint job looks amazing. So it distracts you that way to actually see problems in the house. Look, I might have a bright navy blue wall in my bedroom and that people might not like that, but you know what? Hopefully they're smart enough not to be distracted because everything in the house is great and up to date. You gotta look, it's the old age saying that don't judge a book by its cover, but also don't be blind. Number 3, take its temperature. What's that mean? Look, I'm a cold person. I don't like to be hot, but I know when you're buying a house, you gotta keep in mind that there's these drafty areas. And if there's drafty areas, there's problem with insulation, a problem with heating. This is why people sell their homes when it's warm, because you don't pick up on that kind of stuff. You also have to keep in mind that heating and cooling systems are super expensive to fix and to replace. And you also need to make sure they're not too old, because then that's going to eat away at your utility bills. So pay attention to temperature and how you feel. Ask questions about the heating and cooling systems. 4, when buying a house, talk to your decision makers and decide what your deal breakers are first before you start looking. Look, aside from the basics, aside from like windows and countertops, you need to think about the purpose of your home and the requirements that you make for your lifestyle, okay? If a big backyard is important to you because you entertain a lot, then that's something that you have to consider whether or not it's a deal breaker. If you have 5 kids and you really want them all to have a room, you need 5 bedrooms. These are the things you really need to focus on before you start looking at your own home, because then you're going to end up with buyer's remorse if you compromise on your deal breakers. 5, plumbing. I know it's hard also, right? Because who knows about plumbing? But pay attention to certain things. So when you're poking around in the kitchen, you might not see anything from on top. Get underneath the sink. See if everything looks, professionally done. See if you see any wet marks, any damage, any mold. And the only way you're gonna do that is by looking under the sink. And that's someplace, it's you might feel uncomfortable doing so because you're in somebody's house, but it's definitely a necessity. Same thing when you go into the basement. You'll see all those pipes running around and you think you wanna ignore them. Don't. Pay attention to water damage and mold. I know this time we're all using masks. Take off the mask a little bit and smell to see if you smell anything funky. Usually it's mold. Okay, so 6, check out the land beforehand. So don't just look at the actual property, but check out the actual land. Do you see, check it out after it rains. I love going to houses after it rains because then you're gonna see where there's any kind of flooding issues, a lot of puddling, or that sort of thing. So definitely check that out. Also check out things like your driveway. Do you gotta share your driveway with somebody else? Check out the fences. The fence situation is a big deal. Are you sharing a fence? Does the fence have to be updated? So pay attention to that stuff too. It's not just about the house, okay? Number 7. So I talked about this a little bit with number 5, but you gotta stop and smell the roses. And that means you got to smell for sewage, for gas, for anything unpleasant. People who have animals, unfortunately, sometimes that stinks up a house. So you definitely got to try to pay attention to all your senses. It's super, super important. 8, invest in a well-insulated house. We're in New York, okay? It gets cold. One of the biggest investments and one of the smartest decisions is getting a house that's well insulated. The way you know that is you got to check the attic, check water pipes, and heating ducts. They have to all be properly insulated. So we didn't, I'm giving this advice now, but I didn't follow this advice. And I love my home, but my kitchen sink freezes once it gets below about like 15 degrees, which in New York, that happens. Once it gets about 15 degrees, my pipes in my kitchen freeze because that area right behind, and if I looked a little bit closer, is not well insulated. It is now, we fixed it, but it's a hefty cost, so definitely be smart. 9, get your hands on everything. Touch everything. And I know, look, if you're feeling leery, you definitely understand, wear gloves and touch everything, okay? You need to turn on faucets. You need to flip switches, open up windows, close windows, make sure they lock, flush toilets. Might be kind of even weird. Taste the water. Like, ask for a cup of water. See how that situation goes because it matters. Look, this is one of your biggest investments you'll ever make. You gotta love where you are and you gotta make sure you're being smart with your investments. So definitely make sure everything works and check everything. So my last tip, have a home inspection done. If you haven't, check out my interview with Dennis from Beyond the Beams Home Inspections so you can understand why you need a home inspection done. There's only so much you can do with your 5 senses. When you're buying a home, you definitely need a professional to get in there to make sure your foundation is solid and make sure your wiring was up to code. They could even check to make sure that there's no lead paint and no termites. Big deal. And like I said, if you saw that video, you don't want to end up with beehive in your attic. If you haven't seen that video, check it out. If I'm fancy, I'll figure out a way to make it pop up right there. We'll see if I do that. If not, go check it out. And that's it. That's what I have for my buyers out there. I have a buyer's guide. It has a bunch of tricks, a bunch of information that could be definitely helpful for you. It's going to be down there in the comments. That's there for you. I hope this is helpful. Please leave comments. Let me know what you think. Be nice, because I'm totally new. And thanks. All right. Take care, guys.